wanted to do this topic because I couldn't figure out for myself why this wasn't becoming law. Someone told me it had been introduced the last 6 years. It always failed. So I wanted to find it, and when I asked them, well, where in the process does it fail? Who kills it? And I kind of got this convoluted answer about conference committees and stuff. So I just wanted to tell the story when I was there during the 2006 session of where it dies, why, and who kills it. I was a master's student at the time at the U. This was my master's project. It started out small. I mean, I thought at first I'd just interview people at state capitol. But then as they would talk about, you know, so-called evidence and policy decisions, I thought it was worth going to, I guess, a more authoritative source who kind of has a nationwide scope. Yeah, Pawlenty declined.
Because wasn't she on that committee?
She was on the committee, and I called 3 times, and her staff kept saying that she was too busy running for federal Congress.
It passed the Senate, and it passed the House, and it was included in the omnibus bill. And it's worth noting that, you know, the change in majority was really, it was what made the bill go anywhere. It was the first time we even got a hearing on the bill in the House in probably 8 years. So it was a pretty big coup just to get a hearing, and then, you know, it passed committee, and then it was included in the omnibus bill, as Jim mentioned in the film. I mean, in the final hours of negotiation, Governor Pawlenty sent a note to the conference committee saying, if you leave Comp Sec Ed in the bill, I'll veto it. And so, you know, then it becomes a matter for the conference committee of, you know, this is an education omnibus bill. Are we willing to sacrifice, you know, teacher salaries and, you know, everything for comprehensive sex ed? And of course, they weren't going to do that.
In public health, it's all about evidence-based policy and practice, right? Well, when Rector wrote that law, because he was friendly with a conservative senator at the time, he just pulled that out of his own ideology. It wasn't based on evidence. That was what he thought, the message he wanted to send to youth. And because of how our political process works, it became law, and $176 million annually suddenly became available to states, to programs that agreed with his ideology. It's amazing how in the last 10 years, it's added up to over $1 billion. And like Bill Smith said, it's changed the landscape in the last 10 years. Changed the landscape based on one guy's ideology who was in the right place at the right time. And to me, that's kind of one of the messages that I wanted to convey in this movie was how something that has made such an impact was not based on good science. And that's just how politics works sometimes.
Morality issues and people's values really overshadow the practical need for the information.
A lot of what the politicians were thinking of from what their interviews said is what they believe personally and not what their constituents believe.
I agree with both of them, but I do think that it is complacency with teenagers and not getting involved, because people are always going to try and make decisions for you. Yes, they should be listening, and they should be, they should be following the facts and making logical decisions, but you can't assume that anybody's ever going to do that for you.
Mm-hmm. We have the public behind it. Every poll, state polls, nationwide polls, shows about 80-85% support. So we know that. We have evidence behind it. We have a large number of studies that really show that this doesn't increase sexual behavior, it increases condom use. And we have a Surgeon General's report. So we have all the pieces. The only missing piece now is that critical moment in the legislative process when this bill needs to pass a committee or a conference committee. That's when we need the phone calls and the postcards, because even though a huge majority supports it, a very small number of people take political action. And I'm a little more hopeful, actually, when it comes to Pawlenty sometimes, because what I heard is when he threatened to veto it, he got a barrage of phone calls organized by the Minnesota Family Council. Mm-hmm. So what if that didn't happen? Or what if that was combated by a bunch of phone calls from our side? Maybe it would have turned out differently. He's gotten some flack since he threatened that veto. Even the Star Tribune had a couple editorials about the rising abortion rates and mentioned his threatened veto of his bill. I've sent him a copy of the movie. Maybe his staff watched it. I know that Betty McCollum's staff has seen it. So I'm a little hopeful, and maybe more people have seen this movie and are a little more motivated. I'm a little hopeful maybe if he's politically sensitive, maybe he's running for vice presidency, people said that he'll be more sensitive to how the public's going to perceive his reaction to this bill.
And I think
So-
that his turning back the, not applying for the abstinence-only
Right,
funding,
maybe that's a good sign.
that's encouraging. I mean, that's, that's not necessarily him saying, go comprehensive sex ed, but it's an acknowledgement. It's a subtle acknowledgement that maybe this isn't the best program for Minnesota.